Alrighty, so News of the Week episode on this Monday afternoon, and it's hard to believe that we are just 12 days away from the beginning of the MLS regular season, which means that I'm pretty much in a rush in terms of finishing the season preview. I'll do two more tonight, and then of course I'll do a couple more, and I'll also pre-record a couple more because, little newsflash, I'm going to be going to the Coachella Valley Invitational on Wednesday and get to see a couple of MLS teams, including two of my team, Minnesota United and the San Jose Earthquakes, play in person. But first of all, in terms of some of the signings that we had, and even though we're pretty late into the off season, we're still seeing some signings and transfer rumor because again, the transfer window doesn't close until March. So yeah, we saw a couple of teams make some signings and some trades. Starting off with LAFC acquired midfielder Stephen Eustáquio on loan from Porto. Now this one was kind of came out of nowhere, considering that I definitely envisioned the fact that Stephen Eustáquio can get himself in MLS, but I didn't think that it would be just kind of came out of nowhere. And in some way, it kind of was a little overshadowed because of the fact that this happened right around the same time when James Rodriguez officially signed with Minnesota United. But yeah, just like the James Rodriguez signing, this is a low deal. I believe it's a season long, if I'm not mistaken. The LAFC, of course, got him, and I think it's a good deal for LAFC. He is a very good midfield, as we've seen during his time with the Canadian national team. And LAFC is definitely a team that's known to like their fair share of Canadian team. I mean, there's a lot of players on that team that have Canadian nationality and also French nationality as well. So yeah, overall, I think this is a good signing for LAFC, and I also wouldn't be surprised he might be a regular starter as well, especially for a guy that is looking to play well with LAFC in preparation of representing Canada in the upcoming World Cup. Speaking of Canadian player, the New York Red Bulls have signed Jahkeele Marshall Rutty in exchange for Wiki Carmona that is going to Montreal. So Jahkeele Marshall Rutty, remember how a couple of years ago he was touted as one of the top rated Canadian player, and there was even some big interest. I believe Bayern Munich was interested in terms of signing him, but obviously that didn't quite work out. And ever since that, he's been kind of bouncing around the league. Now joining the New York Red Bulls as his latest club, so we'll see how he's going to do. But I think Red Bulls fans are probably happy the fact that they finally got rid of the contract and sent Wiki Carmona to somewhere else, because at least from what I heard from a lot of Red Bulls fan, they have been very frustrated in terms of how Wiki Carmona has been during his time as the New York Red Bulls player, and they've been wanting to get rid of him for so long. So yeah, I guess in some way this might be the way to do it, and bring in a guy that I still think Jahkeele Marshall Rutty, of course, has some upside. He hasn't really shown that, but he is still relatively young in his career. But yeah, this is gonna be an interesting thing deal, and especially it's not very often we see a player trade that is not involving money, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, should be interesting to see how both of the team is going to look with the respective player that they got. Now speaking of Montreal, they have acquired Noah Streit. I think that's how you pronounce it, from FC Basel. So this is a guy that play as number 9, I believe, with FC Basel. And again, Montreal this offseason, as I'll talk about in my season preview of this team. This team kind of is having an interesting off season where they've been signing a lot of these guys are kind of unknown. We don't know exactly how they will perform in MLS, but it's also kind of on par as the fact that this is a team that is going through a deep rebuild, and that this is a team that is looking to sign these players that maybe will be a way to kickstart this rebuild, maybe forming themselves a core sooner than later. So yeah, we'll see whether or not if this is the latest kind of unknown quality that Montreal has signed over this off season that will work out for this upcoming year. Moving on. So San Diego, they have signed Bryce Duke off of free agency, and I like this signing. I mean, I know Bryce Duke, he hasn't really lived up to his potential. Going back to his day, where remember when he was with LAFC and he's showing some promise, and that he eventually did got transferred to Inter Miami because of the way that he was getting some more playing time. I think he looked best during his time with Inter Miami, because once he went to Montreal, he kind of lost a little bit in the shuffle. He started well, but kind of lost in the shuffle a bit, and now more used for a utility player. And San Diego is kind of a team that we know that they like to pick up players that maybe kind of a reclamation project or utility player to add more depth. And I think Bryce Duke will fit perfectly well in terms of the depth chart that the San Diego team has for this upcoming season, and won't be surprised he will do well with them because that's just been how it is for San Diego in terms of most of the signings that they have. Minus, of course, Jahkeele Lozano, though. No one, I'm pretty sure the front office do not want anything to do with Jahkeele Lozano, especially that ongoing situation is still not resolved. And then Orlando City, they have signed defender Iago Tedero from Flamengo. So I think I already talked about this before in my previous News of the Week episode, so I'm not going to go too deep into it. Most likely is going to be a replacement for Rodrigo Schlegel in that center back spot. So yeah, we'll see how, of course, he will do with Orlando City. Speaking of center backs, so RSL have signed a new center back. They have signed Colombian center back Juan Jose Arias on loan from Nacional. Now, what's kind of interesting about this deal, just like the James Rodriguez deal, this is actually only a short-term loan. He's only going to be loan until around where the World Cup is, and I feel like this is going to be something we're starting to see with players where, hey, I need to have a way to do well as a runway in terms of playing for my national team, and I guess maybe this guy is another example of that. And especially from what I heard that he looks very good during his time with Nacional. I think RSL probably got a decent player, and especially again, as I also talk about RSL, just like I talk about Montreal, they're kind of in an interesting stage where they have signed a lot of these players that could be on theory be good in MLS, but it hasn't been proven. And if there's anything we know about RSL when it comes to some of the signings that they made, especially the overseas recruitment, yeah, they haven't really done so well when it comes to that department. They're definitely looking to turn that around in terms of the midst of this team. Definitely going for a transitional period and somewhat going for a rebuild heading into this upcoming season. And then moving on in terms of the next news, so Johnny Perez, he is currently in a holdout right now with Nashville after there was rumor that he was going to be potentially joining Chivas, and I'm not surprised this is the case because it feels like any former LA Galaxy player, especially former Galaxy player that has Mexican heritage, just have always have rumors to potentially go to Chivas. I think it really kind of started with Efrain Alvarez, and then there was a couple more players that were going to Chivas as well. Even Chicharito when he played for a couple of years, and then he eventually go back to his boyhood club in Chivas. So it feels like that Chivas Galaxy pipeline. It's something that is unexpected, but I guess it is kind of thing, and it also kind of interesting the fact that you remember that team called Chivas USA. Yeah, that team used to play where the Galaxy play, so I'm not quite sure if this has anything to do with it. Probably not, and maybe it's just a coincidence. But yeah, it's kind of feels very it feels like a very interesting move. The fact that once again we have another former Galaxy player, especially a homegrown player that has Mexican heritage that potentially is going to be joining Chivas, and Chivas has known to sign a lot of players in MLS that have Mexican heritage. Most recently, I think they got Brian Gutierrez from the Chicago Fires, and now Johnny Perez might be the latest one to do so. Now, whether or not if that, of course, will work out, I don't know, because as I mentioned before, anytime when players go to Liga MX from MLS, it hasn't really quite worked out, especially for Chivas as well. A great example is Cal when he decided to go to Chivas, and even though he's now back in MLS, I think only on a loan basis with the New York Red Bulls. It's safe to say that his time with Chivas has been kind of mediocre at best, you got to say. Now, moving on in terms of some transfer rumors. So the Columbus Crew, they are in talk to sign Azerbaijani international attacker Narimin, and I think it's Akazanda, if that's how you say it. Again, I'm definitely going to be better when it comes to these pronunciations, especially these long names. That is, but he is coming from Karabakh, a team that is very well known in the Champions League this season because they become the first Azerbaijani team to be able to move on into the knockout round, and there's already some great stories about the Cinderella run that they had, the ultimate underdog run that they had in the Champions League of getting into the knockout stage. But yeah, this is gonna be an interesting one, and I believe this is also going to be probably the first ever Azerbaijani player ever play in MLS. I don't think there's ever been an Azerbaijani play in MLS before, and especially the numbers that he has with Karabakh has been very good as well. Wouldn't be surprised if Columbus is looking to snatch him up, and especially with this team needing a play maker on this team. We'll see whether or not if this deal, of course, would be done. And then Toronto FC, they are looking to sign Colombian youth international Emilio Arizabal. I think that's how you say it. Again, anytime when there's a long name, it's going to be hard for me to pronounce it. But he also is coming from Atlético Nacional as well. So you got two Nacional player that is rumored to come to MLS. That's something you don't see every day where you have the same club from Colombia linked with players coming to MLS. But yeah, this feels like it's a deal. Basically, it's kind of like a backup plan for Josh Sargent. So with the whole Josh Sargent thing still kind of been in a bit of a holdout period right now. We still don't know exactly if this is going to done. It feels like as the day goes along, it feels more and more unlikely it's going to get it done. Even though Josh Sargent has really openly said that he does not want to play for Norwich City anymore. He wants to go to Toronto FC and he wants to go to MLS, but Norwich City is kind of hold him hostage, and this is kind of been the story of what I said for the last couple of weeks, or really the last couple of months of this ugly divorce situation that is involving him and Norwich City. But yeah, this feels like it's a backup plan for them in terms of not able to get Jar Sargent. And well, I know his profile is not as big as Jar Sargent. He definitely does have some potential as well and could work well for Toronto FC, at least maybe on a short term basis of them eventually maybe getting Jar Sargent either maybe by the end of this primary transfer window, or they're looking the summer transfer window when his contract does expire with Norwich City. Now, St. Louis, they are report to sign Lucas McNulton off a free agency. So this is more likely a depth signing for St. Louis. Lucas McNulton has kind of been bounced around the league, the latest club that he was with DC United. He did start a couple of times. He was okay during his time, but clearly I don't think he's a guy that is a regular starter. Like if he's a regular starter for your team, it's no wonder why your team is not doing well in that DC last season. As I said, they were a very bad team, especially on the defensive end. So yeah, I think it's a good depth signing if St. Louis of course are going to get him, and most likely that is going to be the case. There is report, especially from Tom Boger, saying that it's going to be imminent that he's going to be joining St. Louis as a free agent. And then Austin FC, they are report to transfer Murto Uzuni to Trabzonspor in the Turkish Super League. So this is kind of interesting because you know how I did my season preview of Austin FC. I talked about how it feels like for Austin, maybe one of these two big DP forward is going to be transfer out because they've been kind of underwhelming. It's either going to be Uzuni or is it going to be Vasquez? Well, it feels like Los Verdes probably watched my video because yeah, now it seems like they're going to eventually they get rid of one of their big DP forward in Murto Uzuni, and it kind of makes sense because Uzuni has been very underwhelming during his time with Austin, and with the amount that they, of course, pay for him and the production that he has, I mean, it's a definition of a bust in terms of how he did during his time with Austin FC, and now they're trying to get rid of that contract, open a DP spot that I'm assuming they're probably going to use that on the number 10 spot. Like that, all signs has to point that because I think when you look at this team, I mean, as much as they did make some decent signing, especially improving the winger position and even the wingback position with the signing of Nelson and Rosales. I do still think that if this team wants to improve the attack significantly compared to last season, which was one of the worst attack in the league, they need a proper Sebastian Driussi replacement. They haven't had a proper Sebastian Driussi replacement for a while. I mean, they tried it with Danny Pereira last season. It didn't really quite work out. In some way, some Austin fans might say Owen Wolf might be that player, but he's not really a guy that is going to be considered to be your main playmaker for this team. He's a good playmaker in his own in terms of in his number 8 spot. But I do think that for this team, and especially what Driussi brought to this team a couple of years ago, being that DP level number 10 and being literally one of the best number 10 in the league and only finished second in MVP voting behind Mukhtar just a couple of years. They've been looking for that player that will really uh, give this Austin attack a huge injection of boost, and I think that's going to be something that they're going to definitely be targeting. And one of the way to do so is they need to get rid of one of their high signing DP and admit that yeah, this has been a failure, and Murto Uzuni has been kind of a failure in a big way during his time with Austin FC. But there you have it. That is pretty much it. Looking at this news of the week episode. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of these news, and if there's any news I didn't mention here on the board, let me know in the comments below as always. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.